Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Delightful. Today is, say it with me, people, it is Friday, woohoo, June 28th. And I've got a number of things to talk to you about today. I have notes. I want to talk about the definition of romantasy. A few of us have been arguing about that. World building versus vibes. I'll explain what that's about. And also, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that I have been making progress again, finally, and what I've done to make that happen. Spoiler alert, I have relearned a lesson that I think I have learned 97 times before. So, all of this coming, I'm going to take a brief moment, hopefully brief. I want to talk a little bit about the presidential debate last night here in the US. Um, and Mostly because, like if you don't want to hear it, skip ahead, or you may be excused entirely. Um, I feel like y'all watched the presidential debate for the wrong reason. First of all, why did anyone watch it? Why did you watch it? There was no reason to watch it, right? So, a presidential debate, the entire point of a debate, right, is, especially a political debate, right, is to listen to the two sides and determine which candidate best fits your own views, best represents what you think, and who, debate, right, who best addresses an intellectual argument uh, for their position and what they would do in office. People, we know, we know where our candidates stand. We have, on the one hand, Trump, who is, you know, I want to say crypto. What are they saying? Christo fascist. Catering to the far right wing nuts, the conservative right, the Christian right, who want to take rights away from pretty much everybody except for straight white men. And I feel like that's fair. I mean, there are people out there wanting to get rid of no fault divorce, which is because, let me just read you this meme. Okay, this is sitting Senator Tom Cotton. Says, men are simple creatures. It doesn't take much to please us. The problem is women. Divorce is almost always their fault. They refuse to be satisfied by what God has given them. Unless they have been victims of domestic violence, they should not be allowed to divorce. Okay, that's where we are on the one side. On the other, I don't care. I really don't care. The, this whole idea that people tuned into the debate to see if Biden was strong enough to be reelected, if he was going to be engaged or vibrant or inspiring enough, is all complete and total bullshit. I'm sorry, people, but it's all irrelevant. That's all drummed up by the media circles to get people to watch, right? Because they want you to watch. It's also part of how the far right is trying to undermine the election. And probably undermine is the wrong word. It's how they're trying to win the election, because their entire strategy depends upon splintering the vote for Biden. That's what they're trying to do. So everything you're seeing with the Green Party, everything you're seeing about, oh, is Biden too old? Is he strong enough? Is he engaging enough? Is he charismatic enough? Should Biden step aside? All of this is an attempt to splinter the vote so that Trump can win, because that is the only way that Trump can win at this point. Um, it's it's just crazy. Like, why? I just don't understand why anyone would watch that, because you didn't find out anything. You didn't find out anything at all, and all it did was, at least from what I've glimpsed on social media this morning, is get people really upset. The other reason that their strategy depends entirely on splintering the vote is because the incumbent in any election, no matter who it is strongly, strongly favored to win. I looked up some of the statistics. There's all of these variables, but across the board, no matter who it is, no matter what kind of election, the incumbent is more likely to win. So they're fighting that too. That's why when people are saying, well, Biden should step aside. No. Then you give up the advantage of the incumbent. If the Democrats had Biden step aside to have someone else run, then you're pitting a new candidate against a familiar candidate. It doesn't matter that Kamala has been vice president for 4 years. It doesn't matter, or 3 years, whatever. No, you do not give up the advantage of having the incumbent. And the fact that people are even talking about that is part of this same strategy. So, I understand people are upset. I understand people are worried. If you're a Trump supporter, why the hell are you listening to my podcast? Please don't, because there's just, I can't respect anyone who supports Trump. I just can't. There's no reason to. The guy wants to establish an authoritarian government, has said so. Yeah, don't do that. So going back to the debate, nobody went to watch that debate to make up their minds between Trump and Biden. Nobody. That was not why the debate was aired. That's not why it happened. No one is interested in weighing the thoughtful replies one way or the other. We've had Biden in office. We know what his term will be like. We've had Trump in office. We know what his term will be like. I remember going to my first presidential debate for the 1988 election between the first George Bush, George Sr., and Michael Dukakis. And I remember being boggled at that time because one of the major criticisms against Dukakis was that he was a card-carrying liberal, like that was a really bad thing, which puzzled me at the time. But I saw that debate live and in person because it happened at my college campus, Washington University. And they debated ideas. They talked about, point and counterpoint. That's a presidential debate. I don't have any idea what went last night. I can only guess. But it was a circus, therefore, to get clicks and views, right? All right, so I'm just going to leave it there. But when you see the hysteria on social media today, just don't. Just walk away. It's meaningless. All right, let's talk about more interesting things. Interesting things like writing. Yay! I've had a good week, and it feels so good. I feel like I am finally getting my momentum again. Even without today, I have already had this week the best writing week I have had since the end of February. Woohoo! And it is also already my best month since, I think, February. Funny how that works. March, April, May. Yeah, since February. We remember February as the halcyon days. It is going to be my worst June word count month on record. Usually June is great word count month for me. Not so much. But I revised my word count goal down from 3,000 words a day to 2,000 words a day. And I have been hitting that this week, more or less. I'm working up. Monday I got 1364. Tuesday I got 1641. Wednesday I got 2168. And yesterday I got 1928. Fell a little bit short, but what that means is I have been averaging 1775 words a day this week, and I am on track to finish in time for my August 27th release date. And once I get good at this 2,000 words a day again, I'm going to up it, start gradually increasing it. So yeah, and the book is feeling good, no longer fighting me. That's one thing about writing every day. I'm 505 words short of 50,000 words on this book. I'm anticipating it'll come out, I think I've said around 87,000. So tooling right along, and it's great. I'm so happy. So happy. Um, I'm also happy I didn't watch the presidential debate. Debate. I feel like we should put it in air quotes, but I'm not going to keep going on about that. How did I do this? Gosh, Jeffy, how did you do this? I stopped going on the freaking internet before I write, and I don't have the internet open while I write. And why do I have to learn and relearn this? I don't know. I can't look at Discord. And I'll tell you what, I started doing that on Wednesday and yesterday. I made sure I got all of my word count done before I looked at the internet, before I looked at Discord or anything. And son of a gun, amazing how that works. So, I always think, oh, well, I can do it when I'm, like when I'm on a roll and I'm doing well, I think, oh, I can do this. And no, Jeffy, you cannot. So, this is life, isn't it? Learning and relearning the same lessons over and over again. But there we are. At least there's a solution, right? Um, so we've been having this argument about what is romantasy, which, why are we even arguing? So I was quoted in this article, and I will put it in the show notes. This article came out earlier this week, June 24th. So what is that, Monday? And in Paste magazine, Alana Jolie Abbott wrote it, and she did a phone interview with me. We discussed it, or maybe we did Zoom. I don't remember. It was a little while ago. But the article is what we talk about when we talk about romantasy. And for longtime listeners, first apologize for the political rant. It is part of the brand here at First Cup of Coffee. Just as any coffee conversation would go, romantasy is a portmanteau of romance plus fantasy. And I posted to one of my author discords, a couple of my author discords, this article, saying I was quoted in it. And my friend Megan Mulry said that I was the only person who made sense in the article, which was a compliment. But one thing that my bestie, Grace Draven, said is that she was on a panel last weekend, I think it was last weekend or the week before, at Book Bonanza, that was a romantasy panel, and that she had decided that she doesn't write romantasy because every other author on this panel said that they don't do world building, only the vibes. And I've been hearing this a lot, and I have good friends, people who I really like, who declare this. We are only here for the vibes, which puts me in mind of the olden days of paranormal romance, which I would sometimes describe as being romance plus a dash of woo-woo. Sometimes the paranormal romance was barely paranormal at all. It was just a little bit of woo-woo. This whole thing of fantasy plus romance, but it's just enough fantasy for the vibes, and which I think dovetails with this idea of what my assistant Corrine calls Renaissance fair fantasy, right? It's the turkey legs, the wenches, pretend jousting. There's a Renaissance fair. Typically, I don't know, I've never been to one that was authentic, and I love a good Ren fair. But a Renaissance fair does not attempt in any way to create historical accuracy. It's fun. It's basically a a hastily erected amusement park run by high school students. And I say that with authority because my friends in high school worked at the Renaissance Fair in Larkspur, Colorado, all summer. And my very first boyfriend, that was where he got laid for the first time, at Renaissance Fair. And because they would all camp out, right, while they worked there. And I know a lot of people that's basically what it was there for. And they would run around and yelling huzzah and that kind of thing. And it really had very little to do with actual Renaissance. And that wasn't the point. They were there. People go for the vibes. They go to drink tankards of ale, and I would buy masks. I have a mask collection that I think started at Renaissance fairs. And to watch jousting competitions and, eat turkey legs, those great huge turkey legs, which it turns out have an astonishing number of calories. That's a total aside. But I remember the first time I saw it, which when you're going to a Renaissance fair, it's sort of like any fair. You don't care about that, right? So yeah, this whole idea that there is a subsection of the Romantasy audience that does not want world building, or as Grace concluded, did not want any world building and only vibes, and she didn't want to mislead readers. And we've kind of been debating it. Sam Nescosta, who I like a lot and says that she's just there for the fantasy vibes, says that she doesn't see the point of why are we even talking about romantasy except as a marketing term? And I think that's a really excellent point. It's like we just want readers to know it's fantasy plus romance. And yes, we already had a term for that, right? As people are rightfully pointing out, we had fantasy romance, we have romantic fantasy, and we have people who debate which is which. And, I don't know. This whole idea that there's something wrong with world building. And maybe that's not what people are saying, but they don't want to slog through world building. Some people say that they don't want to read books with maps because they think that that's going to be an indicator that that it's all about the world building. And certainly that is a flaw of epic fantasy, which is why we joke about it. Like the Bulwer Lytton contest has a whole category for the overwritten fantasy novel, which delves into cod pieces and snoods and these granular details of medieval life, which doesn't matter because it's a fantasy world and it's not really our medieval world, and it's only picking on certain aspects of it. I mean, there's all kinds of things we can criticize here. And when I teach world building, which I do I teach world building from a character-driven perspective. I've done a master class on that, and it was really well received. But one of the things that I talk about in that is, that one of the great displacement activities of writing a fantasy novel is the person who does all of the world building first. And there are people who spend years or decades in world building, and they have their file cabinet full of everything about this world, but they have never actually written the book. When I teach it, I teach about building your world around what will drive your characters through the story. But it's more than vibes. So I don't have an answer here. I'm sort of, this is what I'm turning over in my mind. I do know that people who are fantasy readers, science fiction fantasy readers, and very interested in the romantasy boom have picked up romantasy books and been kind of shocked and disappointed at how thin the world building is, right? So that's the other direction on this thing. And of course, I'm a fan of people reading what they want to read. Read what you want to read. I recall a review I saw once where they said, this is a great book to read if you don't want to to have to slog through all that world building. And it was a book that I thought had really thin world building to the point of being bad world building. So, everybody gets their thing, but I don't think I agree with this idea that romantasy automatically means no world building. I think authors, especially these new ones on Kindle Unlimited and so forth, are kind of training themselves to say these things because they think that's what readers want. So they're like, no, I don't do all that world building. I just do vibes. And okay, there's a place for that. It's not what I do. It's not what I like. So on that note, I'm off to build some worlds and some words. I hope you all have a fantabulous weekend, and I will talk to you all on Monday in July. You all take care. Bye-bye.